Tin, 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 tin. Yo guys, Lightning Z here. Welcome to Lightning Z channel. Yeah, there are no music themes yet. Okay, so today we're gonna react to Llama Art's Carry animation. So before you watch this, you better slap that like button, punch the subscribe, and ring that bell. And comment. You greatest fear. My greatest fear is down. Okay, so let's start reacting. Booyah. The horn-headed man.
Peered through my window as I jolted away. My clamorous breaths disturbed the silence of my dark room. I had just come out of a frightful dream.
You sleeping, and the door is open. What the hell happening to you, man? You better lock the door 10 times more secure than me. My English is so bad right now. Just move on.
That had me thinking it was all too real. With sweat on my brow, I sat up and grabbed my water from the nightstand. I had just come out of a frightful dream that had me thinking it was all too real.
What?
With sweat on my brow, I sat up and...
Mom? When the last time you see your mom?
Grabbed my water from the nightstand and took a sip from the now warmed glass. My hands shook as I recounted my nightmare of the horn-headed man. In my dream, I was walking through my neighborhood, the street lights flickering as I made my way down the uninhabited sidewalk. Nothing threatening, just a walk through the midnight hours. A block down, I could see a figure in the distance, walking slowly towards me. His steps seemed mismatched and labored. He passed a few houses.
I want to warn you, before you watch this video, don't watch it at night, because it's too spooky for me. Just move on.
Houses looking straight ahead, neither looking left nor right. His head was fixed on the sidewalk in front of him.
What the
As
hell
I was getting
is
closer
that?
to my home, I could see him slowly starting to embark on my territory.
Oh
I
man.
quickly rushed to my front door and hurried inside.
Lock the door.
Through my window, I could see him walk past my property. I was thinking to myself, oh God, please have him keep going, please. He was just
Walking
about to walk
like
all
a
the way
zombie,
past my
man.
front
Run,
yard.
run. Call
He
the
stopped.
911. Call the
His
911. You
body
idiot.
shifted abnormally as he turned to face my home. He just stood there,
No.
not moving, just standing there. The man bore the horned head of a skeletal goat. His body was pale and looked fragile, and his fingers were thin and bony.
Run.
I
Call
thought to
911.
myself,
Call
what does he want?
911.
Slowly, he started lifting a quivering arm and pointed right at me. I started to backpedal into the darkness of my house, when all of a sudden he let out an inhuman screech. That's
Oh
when I
my
woke
God.
up. Too frightened to go back to bed, I turned on the television and saw that the local news for early risers was on. My stomach dropped, and my body suddenly turned cold as I listened to the current news report. The news anchor on the television said, "Breaking news. A woman who lived on Columbia Avenue has been murdered. Local officials say that they received an anonymous phone call from the victim's home. We arrived at the house at around 12:20. We saw the victim inside in a card which rested next to her." The sheriff held up the card. On the back of it, I could see the image of the horn-headed man. The officer started to read. "One down. Slowly I go." He then lifted his head back up. His blood started trickling from his eyes and mouth. I sat there shaking, and I couldn't breathe. Columbia city is just 3 blocks away from me. I jumped out of my bed and ran to my window. Something within me made me want to look outside. That's when I saw him. He just stood there, looking, not moving, just looking. The horn-headed man.
What the
His
hell
body
did he
pale
want?
and fragile, and his fingers thin.
Oh, you
bony.
better take the shotgun. Oh my god. That was freaking crazy, man. Okay, gotcha. So we're going to the next video. Okay guys, the next animation is called The Roommate. So you better watch your roommate before he kills you. Yeah.
Looking for a new roommate is always a daunting task. Even though you interview and take the time to get to know that person, you don't truly find out who they are until you start living with them. I had begun searching for a roommate after I decided to leave my current residency. I was contacted a couple of hours after placing an ad on the Facebook Marketplace. The message read,
Hey Chris, I'll be moving out of my current apartment this August and I'm looking to room with someone new, as my roommates are moving to California this year. I'm 27 and I'm currently going to school. When I'm not at school, I enjoy hiking and watching movies. I also apprentice at a taxidermy shop on the days I don't have class. Hope that's not weird. It's always been a fun hobby of mine. Anyway, I'm looking forward to hearing back from you. Have a great day, Lunaire.
My first and most obvious reaction after reading the message was to check her profile. She was a medium height, had long, messy blonde hair and green eyes. In her profile picture, I saw her standing with a man and a woman shoulder to shoulder. They each adorned goofy grins and held up peace signs. Under the photo, the caption read, "Love my roommates." I smiled to myself and decided to send her a message back.
Who the
Something
hell is
down on-
that? Go back. Go back 10 seconds.
Under the photo, the caption read, "Love my roommates." I smiled to myself and decided to send her a message back.
Who the heck? I feel something on my back. You better get ready your shotgun, boy, before you watch this. Okay, let's go more.
The
That
sun beat
is
down on
really
us as we
freaky
hoisted
on that
various
roommate.
objects to the second floor of our new apartment. It took us a couple days to get everything out of the moving trucks and into our new place, but as soon as we did, a wave of relief washed over our sweat-drenched and sore bodies. After a couple more hours of rearranging, we each grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat on the porch. We reminisced about old 90s cartoons and what video games we obsessed over as kids. As the sun started to set, I truly felt relaxed and confident that things were going to work out. A week later, I started a new job for a construction company that was owned by a good friend of mine. As I was getting ready, I heard the front door swing open. I walked into the living room to see Lunaire and her friend David sliding in a large box. "What you got there?" I asked. Through a strained grunt, she replied,
I bought a freezer to store some of the animals I'm planning on using in my taxidermy work. I hope that's alright.
I
Animals.
was obviously hesitant at first, as there was no mention of this happening in the first place, but I eventually accepted and returned to my room to continue getting ready for work. I came home at around 9 p.m. after having a couple of beers with friends and noticed that the freezer was nestled snugly in the lower part of the pantry. A low hum could be heard reverberating off of the inner walls. I was curious to see what was inside, but didn't want to intrude on Lunaire's business, so I went into my room and changed into more comfortable clothing. After changing, I came back out into the kitchen and started making a sandwich. I opened the fridge and grabbed what I needed. As I turned around, I stubbed my toe on the edge of the island countertop and let out a long, exasperated grunt.
Oh
Through
my god.
frustration,
Same like me. When I hit that. That's hurts. Moving on.
I slammed the fridge door shut and checked my toe to see if there was any bleeding. As I raised my head back up, I was greeted by a shadowy figure.
What the
Nair
hell
was standing
is
in the doorway
that?
leading to her room. The darkness behind her almost seemed to envelop her.
Is everything okay?
She said in a deadpan tone.
You better get out of there.
Shit, yeah, I'm sorry. I just slammed my toe into the corner of the countertop as I was making a sandwich. I hope I didn't wake you,
It's fine.
she said, in the same deflated tone as before. She then turned around and walked back into the darkness of her room. I could
The
tell
way
that she
she
was
asked,
pissed,
like,
so I quietly made my sandwich
are you
and retreated
okay?
back to my room as well, only hearing the low
What
hum from
the-
the freezer as I closed my door. I had the next day off, so I was able to sleep in a little longer than usual. When I finally emerged from my room, I walked into the kitchen to make breakfast. As I opened the refrigerator, I noticed that the light wasn't turning on and there was a lack of cold air escaping from inside. I turned around and flipped the light switch to confirm my suspicion. Sure enough, the power was out. Damn it, I muttered under my breath. I walked over to Lunaire's room and knocked on her door to tell her about the power outage if she didn't already know. There was no answer. I then remembered that she had classes that day and probably wasn't home. I walked back to the kitchen and past the pantry. As I did, I slipped on the floor but was able to catch myself on the countertop. What the? I angrily exclaimed as I looked down at the floor trying to figure out what I had slipped on. It was blood. It had started to leak from the corner of the freezer and pool onto the floor. I quickly tried to open the freezer to find out the cause of the
Instead of
viscous
jams?
liquid, but then I noticed that it had a padlock attached to it.
Or
I
what?
don't remember seeing that before. I ran out to my car and grabbed my toolbox from the back seat. I approached the freezer and set my tools down on the nearby
Yeah, you
countertop.
better broke
I
that.
then pulled out a small pair of bolt cutters and snapped through the metal of the padlock. It fell to the ground with a large thud. I creaked open the top of the freezer and was greeted with a putrid stench that permeated my nostrils. I quickly pinched my nose and walked away gagging in response. I guess I should have realized that was going to happen, I muttered to myself in between gags. After gaining my composure, I grabbed some gloves from under the sink and started taking inventory. I could see a couple of dead birds in plastic bags wedged into the corners of the freezer. I took each bag out and set them in the trash can nearby. That's when I noticed that the blood was coming from the corner of the larger black bag. I don't know why, but I decided to open the top of the bag and peer inside.
No.
I was greeted by large, milky white
What the
eyes,
hell is that?
swollen black tongue surrounded by
I mean,
cracked
who?
and bloated lips,
Who the
a matted hair of a
heck is
human head.
that?
I swiftly dropped the bag and fell backwards onto the floor. My breathing had ceased to exist, and I grabbed
Call
the trash can
911.
next to me
Call
and expelled my
911.
disgust into it. I then ran out the door, got into my car, and called the police. As I sat in the interrogation room with a blanket over my shoulders, I couldn't help but think about the face I'd seen. It looked so familiar. That's when it finally hit me. I pulled out my phone and looked at Lunaire's profile picture. It was her old roommate, the one she said was moving to California. When the detective entered the room, she started the questioning process, asking me if I started noticing any weird behavioral occurrences around the apartment. Yeah, I stubbed my toe the other day, and she creepily stood in the doorway. It seemed like she was pissed, but for some reason I had a strange feeling like she was concerned about something. That's when I connected the dots. She didn't come out into the kitchen because she heard me stub my toe. She came out into the kitchen because she thought I slammed the freezer instead of the fridge. A cold sweat started to form on my forehead as my surroundings became blurred. I could hear a low whine slowly starting to cover up the words of concern from the detective. As my vision started to clear, I could see another officer enter the room and whisper something into her ear as he handed her a piece of paper. "Do you have somewhere you could stay at?" she asked. "I mean, I was planning on staying with my parents. They live about 30 minutes outside of town." "Okay," she paused. "Listen, I don't want to worry you, but we found this picture inside of your apartment." She slid the piece of paper across the table, and I immediately felt like someone kicked me in the chest. The head of Lunaire's other
Oh my
roommate
God.
sat on the chair. In the background, scrawled on the wall in blood, read, "Love my roommates.
That's one of the
All of
picture.
them."
Damn boy. Get the heck out of there. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Keep subscribing and like, comment down below anything what we're gonna do next video. And don't forget, slap the like, punch the subscribe, and ring the bell. Goodbye.